Hi, my name is Sophie, and this is my 10-minute presentation about gender bias in sport. So my presentation today was inspired by the Nike Dream Crazier campaign, specifically by a commercial that is narrated by Serena Williams that shows clips of women, and Serena talks about the struggles that women face in sport. This commercial challenges how society sees women in sport and everyday struggles that women face because of gender biases, and it points out society's traditional views of femininity and how female athletes are ridiculed because of these views. So I will be going through parts of this commercial as well as course content and be giving my sociological perspective on gender issues and gender biases in sport and in society. So we will get started by talking about the commercial script. So this commercial runs about 2 minutes long, so I won't be reading the whole script, but I will read some lines to get the general point of the commercial across. So Serena narrates, "If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. When we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. But when a woman runs a marathon, it's crazy. A woman dunks is crazy. A woman boxes is crazy." And then she speaks her own personal experiences, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and coming back for more. Crazy, 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 crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do. It's not crazy until you do it. So the word crazy is emphasized in this campaign, and crazy is used in the context that it's crazy for women to act like an athlete, because athletes are supposed to act male because sport is a male-dominated industry, and it's crazy for women to compete in the same sports that that men are competing, and it's crazy for them to want the recognition and the same pay and the same platform that men have. It's crazy for women to have a baby and then come back to their career as an athlete when men athletes do that all the time and continue to compete in regular season. And not only is crazy being used in the context that women athletes want to be treated equal, but it's also being used in the context to describe their emotions. That it's crazy that they show emotion during sport, and it's crazy that they stand up for what they want and that they give their opinions. So to understand this context of crazy and what the commercial means, we will have to understand gender ideology. So the phrases and the language that Serena used in this commercial are traditionally aligned with male gender ideology, and that is why women are being deemed as crazy for participating in such activities and behaving in such ways. So gender ideologies are ideas and behaviors that are traditionally aligned with a specific gender, so not sex, but gender, so either male or female, or also male and female relationships. So traditionally, in a female gender ideology, women are described as overly dramatic, weak, sensitive, and submissive, and that they're not to act angry or out of line or go against the status quo and express their opinions, and these things are deeply embedded in our society, which is why women are viewed as crazy. So it's really common for women to be viewed as crazy, especially by men. It's a generally accepted assumption in Western society. Men are seen as cool, calm, and collected, and women are seen as crazy and sensitive. Even myself, who I consider to be a feminist, will have this thought honestly quite often. I will think, oh, I'm just being crazy right now, I'm overreacting. Well, I shouldn't be acting like this. Why am I being crazy? Like, society has embedded this deep into us that this is a thought that I would have. I've never heard my brother, my dad, my boyfriend, my cousins, when they're upset or expressing emotion, ever say, oh, I'm being crazy right now, that's why. Like, disregard what I'm saying, I'm being crazy. Like, no, they would never say that. That is just something that women say, and that is something that women battle in their head to think about. They're like, oh, am I being crazy right now? No, they're having opinions, they're having emotions, and this is stuff that we don't think women have to deal with, or maybe men don't. I don't think they really understand that, but it's very prevalent in our society. So the commercial says, if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. So the offensive way that we're calling women crazy can probably date back to the 18th century when women started to be diagnosed with hysteria. So women get judged for emotions where men are allowed to express emotions such as anger in sport. So this leads to my next point, that men are emotional too, which we probably all know that they do in fact have emotions, whether society wants to accept that or not, but it's generally not accepted, especially in society, for men to be emotionally vulnerable. They're told to act like a man, and women are seen as emotional entities, but they're still ridiculed for having emotion in contexts such as sport. So they're looked down on in society, and in the sports context, for having emotions. So men are not perceived as being too emotional in sport, but matter of the fact they are just as emotional as women, but they just express it in different ways. So in a book called The Female Brain, written by a psychologist, Luann Brinzendine, she talks about how the part of the female brain that is sensitive to stress is larger, the part of the brain is larger in females than it is in males. So we act in an emotional way to stress different than men will. But they still have that emotional reaction to stress, but men's part of their brain that reacts to fear and aggression is bigger than it is in women. So in sport, to say that women are emotional in sport and men aren't, that's incorrect. They're just showing different emotions. To say that, it would be saying that stress is an emotion, but fear and anger are not, which is not true at all. So the best example I can think of is hockey. So hockey is a really aggressive sport, and it is often that men will get into fights in hockey. Men tend to be more aggressive in sports, either than like combative sports like martial arts, boxing, and wrestling, that the fighting is technical and part of the whole point of the sport. So in hockey, they'll often get into fist fights, and then as we learned in Dark Room, many hockey players suffer from serious injuries such as concussions. So where concussions can happen from slamming into the boards, falling in the ice, all that, it happens a lot to male athletes because they get in fist fights. And I've never seen a fist fight in female hockey. I'm sure they do happen, but they are much more prevalent in male sport, and men are looked up to because they get in these fist fights. They're seen as powerful, not as emotional beings as a woman would be. So why are women perceived this way? Why is it challenging for women to be taken seriously in sport? And it's because women and men have different roles in society. So if we're considering gender roles from a sociological perspective of structural functionalism, traditional masculinity and femininity have different roles in society. And when people do not conform to these specific roles and molds that society has set for them, it jeopardizes and threatens the function of society. So what happens? They're ostracized. So society deals with outliers by ostracizing them, by making sure that everybody knows that they're not fitting in with their mold and the social norm. So society does this to women in sport by calling them crazy. So this goes with the line, when we're too good, there's something wrong with us. So this line is expressed in the commercial when there's a clip of Caster Semenya. So Caster Semenya has been banned from competing by sports jurisdiction because she's too good. She keeps winning, and that seems as impossible because she's competing at times that men compete at, and she's beating all other women, so they're deeming her as intersex because she has a high testosterone count. Even though she was born a female and identified as female, this issue with Caster Semenya having to fight for her right to compete in sport really confirms societal views that men are perceived better, faster, stronger than women. There's no way that a woman could be that good at a sport because women are weaker and slower and not as athletically inclined as men. This just holds them in this dominant position. So what to do about it? Women have more representation in sport than they ever had today, more than 20, 30 years ago, which is amazing, but female athletes have to continue to fight for the right to be accepted in sport. They should not have to mask their emotions to be accepted and seen as strong individuals. The blanketed term and conception that women are crazy, or that a success of a woman is crazy, feeds into male hegemonic masculinity, and it needs to be stopped. We need to see male and females, any gender, any sex, as individuals, and everybody being strong, and emotions don't make us more or less, they just make us who they are. So that's my opinions. That's my research on gender bias in sport. Thank you.